welcome to another exciting episode of Creatives Panoply. I'm still your host, Falakemi. On today's edition, we'll be talking about the key elements in writing a memoir. Yes, and I have with me an amazing young lady. And she's not just a professional writer, she also doubles as the training experience lead of Savvy Writers. And she's Bethany Chijundu. You're welcome, Bethany.
Thanks for having me.
So can you introduce yourself? Like, tell us who Bethany is aside being the training experience lead of Savvy Writers.
Well, I'm a writer.
Okay.
And my love for writing comes from my childhood. I grew up living in different places, in different countries actually, and a child of missionaries. So my home was always filled with books. Okay. So from an early age, I learned how to read. And so that's how I got introduced to writing. It was through the love of books. And then when I grew up and I thought about a career, it seemed logical that I would go through the writing path. And so that's how I ended up eventually at Savvy Writers.
Okay, can you actually remember the first book you read that changed your life? Like that book that you always recollect that, oh, this book, like I can never forget this book. I can never forget this book.
Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart.
Oh, wow.
I read that when I was 14, actually, so it was kind of late, but
okay.
we had just moved to Zambia and I was feeling lonely. Like that happens when you go to a new country where you trying to find your space and you're trying to find your comfort zone. And Chinua Achebe's works actually ministered to me and fed me. And I felt at home just reading his work. Like, yes, he was talking about things that happened during colonization, but it still spoke to me as a 14-year-old.
Wow. Wow. That's really a big impact that book made on you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get back to the topic for today, which is the key elements in writing a memoir. So when it comes to memoir writing, people actually, there's a thin line between memoir and autobiography. People set out, I want to write my memoir, and they started incorporating various elements, and you're like, wait, is this actually a memoir or you're writing an autobiography? So what is that dividing thin line? I believe it's actually a thin line that if you're not careful, you will know. So what's that dividing thin line between a memoir and an autobiography?
It's actually very tricky because, like you said, they're very similar. Okay. Because basically they're both telling stories from your first person narrative, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes an autobiography is more, normally people write that when they're at the end of their life, like they've lived life. So you're putting together all that has happened to you.
Okay.
But memoir doesn't have to be about your whole life. Okay. It can be a specific time in your life. And you're just writing about that and sharing that story. And so for memoir, you don't have to start from the very beginning of your life. And you don't have to wait till you're 50, 60 to have lived before you start writing your memoir.
Okay.
That's what a lot of people get confused. So some people have stories to tell, but they're waiting because they think I'm supposed to be a certain age before I write my memoir. But you can start writing your memoir as long as you've lived life to a certain degree. You can write a memoir in your 20s, in your 30s. I mean, look at Trevor Noah.
Okay.
He's in his 30s and he's already written his memoir. So is there a pattern for writing a memoir, like a way or I don't want to use the word guideline, but is there a pattern in writing a memoir that you can actually say, okay, yes, if you're doing this, then this is a memoir. If you're doing this, doing that, then it's an autobiography. So is there a particular pattern people need to follow? No, see, autobiographies are more like precise. Okay. So you go from, normally it's chronological. You go from the beginning to where you are now.
Okay.
Whereas a memoir does not have to be, you don't have to start at your very beginning. You can start from any point. And then memoirs tend to have themes.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
you don't, if I were to write about my life, that would be too much. It would be a long book, right? So you choose what goes into your memoir based on your theme.
Okay.
Yes.
So you draw your experiences from those.
Yes.
Okay.
And and I think that's where a lot of people get bogged down, is when they are writing the memoirs, because they remember so many things, and they haven't yet figured out that you have to have a theme. Okay. And from that, once you have that theme, it helps you narrow down what you want to tell. Another way to help you when you're dealing with writing a memoir is to think like a fiction writer.
Okay.
So when you're telling fictions, like you're writing a novel, there's a way you can play with your narration and characters to make your story more lively and come to life. So it doesn't have to be drab and boring like you would tell your basic story. Yes.
Okay. So memoir is non-fiction, but you still need to draw that element of fiction in telling your story. So I think that's one thing people need to understand.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so what are the key elements when writing a memoir?
So you have to get people connected with you from the get-go. So you start with a story where people see you either at your worst point or at a great point, and then you go from there. And you want to connect with people through how you tell the stories. So you have to use vivid descriptions.
Okay.
You have to show and not tell.
Okay.
Whereas sometimes, like autobiography, some more of you telling, this is what I did, this is what I did. But in memoir, you're actually taking people with you into those moments. They can feel what you were feeling by how you write your story.
Okay. So how this might sound repetitive, but how do you write a memoir? If you want to write a memoir, for instance, just give us a few tips, and I don't want to say the steps involved, like how do you write a memoir?
First of all, you have to ask yourself questions. And the question is, what are the key points in my life that I want to share? Because remember, you are writing a memoir not just for you, but because you want to connect with an audience.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself questions like, what has happened in my life? What lessons did I take from these moments?
Okay.
And that will help you come up with a theme. Once you've gotten a theme, then you look back in your life. And this takes a lot of reflection. Okay. So writing a memoir is not something you can do, 2-3 weeks. Right?
Yeah,
it takes time, because you have to actually sit back and reflect on your life. And that's where the work is reflecting on your life and curating those stories.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us one of the best memoirs you've read.
I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou.
Oh, wow. So just give us a brief summary of the book.
It's been a long time since I read it. Okay. But basically, I read it when I was, I think, 18 years old. Basically, it's about her life, the beginning stages of her life. And I think she didn't speak for a while because she was abused as a child.
Oh.
So, but the way she writes was thought-provoking. Like, she took me into her story. And I actually felt as if I was with her when she was going through her journey.
Okay. So, speaking of that, do I have to write a memoir myself? I might have the idea I have, like, it's my story I want to share, or do I necessarily need to sit down to write a story myself?
Yes, it's true that a memoir is a first-person narrative, but the truth is you can actually work with other people to help you write your book. Okay. People like Will Smith, who's recently come up with his book, partnered with someone to help him to write his book. So basically, you bring your ideas and your stories and you share them with people have the skills to write your memoir.
Okay, yeah. So guys, let me just have this. Savvy Writers actually offers the services. So if you want to write your memoir, you have the idea in your head, you have what you want to write, you have the story you want to share. We could help you articulate your thoughts. So you really don't have to go through that stressful process of writing. Like writing a memoir takes a lot of work. But it's still your idea, it's still your story. The only difference is we give you the words that bring those ideas to life. So back to you. I want to ask you a personal question. Do you plan on writing your memoir soon? That's if you don't have one already.
I'm actually working on it currently.
Oh wow. That's an interesting. So just give us a little hint into that.
So for me, writing a memoir is what makes sense to me because I've actually lived an interesting life. Like I said, I've lived in 5 different countries. And so part of my life has been trying to figure out who I am as a person. Because when you move, you tackle with self-esteem issues, you tackle with dealing with culture shock and all those kind of things. And it can play mind games with you. And so dealing with all those issues. And I feel like I'm in the place right now where I can look back, reflect, and write and inspire other people who might one day or who are currently going through something similar.
So just one thing for those procrastinating writing the memo. Thank God you're on a journey in that aspect. So for those procrastinating writing their memoir, yeah, they have a story they want to share, but they're like, okay, they pick up the pen today, they drop it, and like, I'll continue writing later. So what advice would you give to such?
I'd say don't give up.
Okay.
Yes, it's a journey, but you can start by, first of all, thinking of the core principles you want to share.
Okay.
And then once you come up with a theme, you will find out that easily stories come into your mind. Like even this morning, I got stories in my mind that I'm going to put in my memoir.
Okay.
So once you decide that that's what you want to do and you've come up with a theme, stories will come back into your recollection. Okay. And then you should either, if you're not a writer, then you can record yourself saying those memories.
Wow. That's actually a good one. You sometimes we actually tend to at that spot where you get our inspiration, it's good to document it down in whatever form that comes in handy at that moment, so you don't lose your thoughts. And because it's actually not easy recollecting ideas that just come on the spot. So you might go back and like, oh, what was I even thinking about earlier? What was I saying? What was I? And it's actually a good one. So thank you for that. So one personal question before we go. So tell us something interesting about you.
That's a very interesting question.
Okay.
I think what's interesting about me, people always have assumptions, right, of where you are from by how you look.
Okay.
And so I'm multicultural.
Okay.
I was born in Zambia to a Nigerian father and a Sierra Leonean mom.
Okay.
And I've lived in Kenya as well as Ghana. And I went to school in the US as well. And of course, Nigeria.
Wow, that's interesting. So when people look at you, what tribe or what country do you easily relate?
So I've gotten very interesting things from childhood to now. And when I was younger, people thought I was from Somali.
Okay.
People think I'm Lebanese.
Wow.
People think I'm from a French-speaking West African country. And then because of my accent, it's very hard sometimes to place me because it's confusing. My accent changes.
Okay.
So, and in terms of Nigerian tribes, what people think, of course, some people would say Igbo, but I've gotten at the fact that I'm maybe Fulani or Hausa. as
wow.
well. So
Interesting. That's really nice. As for me, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, this girl is definitely Igbo. I'm not Igbo. Like I am Bolakiabi and I'm Yoruba. So thank you so much for that, Bethany. I think we'll have to wrap up here because of our time. But thank you so much for everything you shared to us. Even me as a person, I picked up 1 or 2 lessons from everything she told us. Thank you so much for your time, Bethany.
thank you for having me.
So that's it, guys. I hope you picked 1 or 2 lessons that you can apply to your writing. And if you have any questions regarding if you have your memoir, your writing, or something along that line, or you want to tread that part, you can drop in your questions in the comment section and we'll respond to you promptly. Don't also forget to subscribe to our channel. Like, you don't want to miss the amazing content we upload. And your notification button, don't forget to put that on too. It's very, very important. And for all our subscribers so far, like, you guys are amazing. You guys are amazing and we appreciate it. So till next time we come your way on Creatives Panoply, I am Falakimi. Bye.